what's the greatest sense of frustration as you work on a case with the justice system for you?
I think it's really two things. It's the thing we talked about, which is the delays, the slowness, the apparent lack of care among the actors that are operating this criminal justice or criminal legal system, for the people who are the subjects of it, that they're actually human beings, that just like the judge, just like the prosecutor, just like the police officer, the person who's been convicted has family, they have feelings, they are a human being too, and that when we have evidence of innocence, we need to move with due haste in order to right that wrongful conviction. But I'll tell you, the thing that is the greatest frustration is when I know that I have a case of someone who's innocent and I know that I should win and we don't win, we don't succeed for them. And they ask me, Seth, when I tell them that we can't work on their case anymore, and they ask me, Seth, does this mean I'm going to die in prison? And I have to say to them, I don't know what it means, but all I can tell you is that today, at this point in time, we've failed you, and we have not been able to succeed for you. And it's going to have to be someone else if this is going to work. And so, and that's it's just gut wrenching. It's the worst part of the job. And
I would think
those things stick with you. But on the flip side, when we exonerate someone, it keeps you motivated and buoyed for years, knowing that you've really given a person a new life, a new chance to experience life and all it has to offer, to start a new family, to make really normal, positive relationships with people in a safe space that's not violent like prison. And so, realize your dreams. And so, every job has advantages and disadvantages, and this is no different.
And that's one of them, right? Now, in Dean's case, when I say it, I still find it very hard to wrap my head around it. He was only 16 when he was accused of this crime, and 30 years went by while he remained in prison. It's a lifetime. And I am sure he will tell us about the changes that he experienced from being a teenager all the way to, where he is right now in his late 40s. But I wanted to ask you about something that, to me, makes this case so unique, and that is the fact that Dean was a committed neo-Nazi or a skinhead, however you want to describe him. And for you, there was kind of a special significance to what he had believed. He certainly doesn't anymore. But tell us a little bit about your connection to his belief system when he was a teenager.
So let me first say that, I think one of the roles of someone who's a criminal defense attorney is to kind of take your clients the way they are. Certainly, the rights that they're afforded under law, under the Constitution, don't delineate based on political ideologies or whether they're racist or an anti-racist. And so, I like to think that if someone was a victim of a miscarriage of justice, whether they were a skinhead or someone who was an anti-racist, that I would represent them all the same, because injustice, it needs to be cured no matter who is the victim of it. And so, that being said, I'm a grandchild of 3 Holocaust survivors, 2 of whom were in concentration camps, and I grew up where all my grandparents' friends were Holocaust survivors, and it's just sort of in my, it's like my genetic inherited trauma, of being a first-generation American. My mother was born in a displaced persons camp in Germany. I'm a first-generation American with all these people around me who were, them and their families were the victims of, mass wrongful incarceration and for their family members who didn't survive genocide. And so, you know, to have a client that is a neo-Nazi was an interesting twist, if you will, on all of this. But, you know, I'll tell you that I didn't know when I first went to meet him, you know, what he was, you know, more than 20 years down the line. And it took getting to know, you know, meeting him and getting to know him to only find out after I already agreed to represent him that he had disavowed neo-Nazism within the first, you know, 5 or 6 years of him being locked up, mainly because, you know, he was now put in a position where he's in a prison with all different people. And, you know, as a young kid, he sought refuge with the white supremacists in prison for safety until the white supremacists also beat him up and assaulted him. And he realized that, you know, his action, like, these people didn't care about him. The family he thought he had based on his race was not a family at all. And in fact, you know, his actions, his ascribing to that ideology, not only hurt him, other people, but it hurt him. And it just, there's more to the world than, you know, skin color is important for people. It indicates culture. For a lot of people, it indicates culture. It indicates, you know, historical trauma that they've received. It's part of them. But there's a lot to learn from each other's differences. And I think prison allowed him to learn that fact that you need to not ascribe generalities or stereotypes to groups of people and actually learn about individual people for who they are. And, you know, create mutual respect between all the people you interact with. And that was a lesson he learned in prison. He realized, look, I gotta step away from this, and I gotta do it particularly if I am to get out of this, you know, and I need to not focus on the negative and be hyper-focused on getting myself out of this predicament, out of my wrongful incarceration. And only when he turned away from that and, you know, led a more productive, positive life was he able to put himself on the path to, you know, taking part in writing his own miscarriage of justice.
How much contact over the years that you were representing him did you have with Dean, and did you ever talk about what you just shared with us?
Yeah. I mean, we would talk, you know, certain times we talk once a month, sometimes less, depending what was going on in the case. Certainly as we were, you know, getting, you know, after we overturned his conviction, we were talking every week. I was seeing him more often in the county jail when he got transferred there ahead of his release. Nice. After he got out in the year when he was out on bond before he was exonerated, we were talking almost every day. And so we've had a lot of conversations. Well, I won't detail them on this podcast. I mean, you know, it's like an interest, like all of it is, it's like how interesting and unique life is that, you know, here, you know, Dean McKee, the former white supremacist, has a Jewish lawyer and a black parole specialist who are the people who are, you know, his two key advocates to get him out of prison. And, you know, it's just, it's a story about not, settling for what people are in their worst moments, and instead really looking at what people can be, if they're just, you know, shown love and compassion and respect and given a second chance. And so, I'm proud to call Dean my former client and a friend, and he's a really good person, and, you know, somebody who I would have never had a chance to meet if I just assumed that he was irredeemable.
That's right. Well, that is a wonderful story. You've really given us some great information about the case. It's going to be fascinating to have Dean on the next 2 podcasts. And I do appreciate all the time that you gave us today, because I know your time is very precious. Thank you so much, Seth. It was great to have you on. I just wanted to close by giving people a new email address just for the podcast. I'd love to hear any thoughts or ideas or comments about what we've already covered. And the address is pursuing.justice5@gmail.com. pursuing.justice5@gmail.com. Thank you again, Seth, for being with us today and for the last podcast as well. Really wonderful to talk with you about this case.
Thank you, Harriet.